3, and this is the beginning of an interview with Elmer Keller at Karasota's Theater, Showplace 12, 713 North Theater Drive, Marion, Indiana. Mr. Keller is 71 years old, having been born on August 7, 1931. He currently lives at 3966 LeGros Road, Marion, Indiana. My name is Michelle Hunt, and I will be the interviewer. Mr. Kelly is my co-worker. Mr. Kelly, could you state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
I was in the Korean War in 1952 and 3. That was the years that I served in the service. I wasn't overseas, but I stayed in the States all the time that I was in the service. I was, what else do you want me to say?
What was your rank?
Well, when I was a corporal in the Army. I was in the artillery, and I got out of the service in June of 1954.
Where did you serve?
I served at the Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in the Army and artillery, and I spent all my time there but 5 weeks. 5 weeks I went to Camp Desert Rock, Nevada, at the Atomic Proving Ground. I was there for 5 weeks and then come back.
Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted.
What was your reaction when you were first drafted?
Well, I really didn't like it, but I knew I had to do it because everybody, you know, that was my duty. I guess the main reason was that I just got married. I was only been married 3 months, and when I got drafted, and I kind of hated to leave my wife.
How did she feel about it?
Well, we both about the same way. You know, we was kind of perturbed or upset because I had to leave. You know, after just being married that long, I thought I was just getting started in life. You know, and I had a good job, and I didn't want to leave it. We was making a little money.
And how old were you?
I was just 20 years old then.
Did you have any children at the time?
No.
What was your job when you found out you were enlisted?
Well, I worked at an asbestos factory there in Huntington, Indiana. We made brake lining for cars and gears, clutch facings and for cars, and also big presses.
And how long had you worked there?
Oh, I'd only been there about a year and a half.
Was that going well, or?
Yeah, it was a pretty good job. I never got laid off all the time I worked there, for a year and a half.
When did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 49, April of 49.
Do you recall your first days in the service?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, I remember them real well. I hated it when I first got in there, but because I was away from home, you know. Mm-hmm. But I soon got over it and just made my life much more. And after 3 months, I got a chance to bring my wife down with me, so that just it was just like a job from then on.
So they allowed family members there?
Well, yes, I could live off post. After I got through my basic training and all, I could live off the post, and I lived in Lawton instead of living on the post.
How long did the basic training last?
Well, I took 8 weeks of infantry training, then I had 8 weeks of artillery training, FDC they call it. It was direct and fire on artillery.
What did you learn during all of that, the training?
Well, I learned to take care of myself. I learned neatness and cleanness, and I learned a lot. I really did. I learned a lot. I learned that there's things that I could do that I didn't know I could do. You know, I was kind of glad I was in the service after I got in.
After a while.
Yeah,
how long did it take to get used to it?
Well, after I got my wife back down there with me, well, it was okay then. It was just like a regular job. I'd go to work in the morning and come home at night, and once in a while I'd have full guard duty at night or on the weekend. So most of the time I was home.
So how many hours a week did you devote?
Well, I'd have to be there and early in the morning, so it was a 7-day-a-week job most of the time. Lots of times didn't have to do anything on Sunday and evenings, but it ain't like a job working in a factory. You have to do what you're told to do, you know. A lot of you put in several hours. We really did.
What was your wife's first reaction when she came?
When she come down there?
Yeah.
Well, it was different. You know, it's different. She'd never seen anything like that, you know. And she got tickled to be there. Of course, we both got kind of homesick for a while, but we got over it.
So did you guys get a house there that you lived
We
in?
just
or did
rented
you...
an apartment, just a 2-room apartment, a bedroom and a kitchen is about all we had. But we couldn't afford anything else at the time.
Well, like, before you went down there, like, is it what you imagined it to be when she got there?
Yeah, well, yes, and not really, but yes. You know, you got a lot of hard times. I mean, you go through a lot of hard times with you don't have any money and things, you know. It learns you a lot to take care of yourself and learn to life, you know. It really does.
Do you remember your instructors?
Part of them, yeah, I remember part of them.
What do you remember from them? Like, what were they like?
Well, back then they were pretty tough, you know. You had to do what they said, and you had to learn to not mouth off to them, because if you did, you'd be sorry for it later on.
Did you ever mouth off to them?
No, I don't think so. One time I forgot to shave in the morning, and that caused me KP at night. So
What was that?
I didn't shave in the morning when I fell out. By KP is when you go to the cafeteria and wash dishes.
Oh.
You help with the KP. They call it KP.
So you had to wash dishes for not shaving?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That was my punishment.
How many instructors were there?
Well, you had when you went through your infantry training, you had an instructor for everything you went to do. There was a different instructor. Like 1 hour you'd be doing one thing, and next hour you'd be doing something else. And then every time you changed, well, you'd have a different instructor. He specialized in just the things that we were doing. So I don't remember none of their names, and I really don't hardly remember their faces, you know.
What were the different areas, like when you went to a different place each hour, like what?
Well, maybe one time we'd be out in we'd be doing, exercises. And next thing we'd be maybe out running, and then maybe we would learn how to tear down our rifles and clean them. And it's anything that they wanted to teach you. And then we'd have to go out on the range and sometimes and fire and shoot our guns at targets and learn to take care of the gun, learn how to clean them, and it's just things that they teach you. It's kind of hard for me to say because I don't remember a lot of it we did do, but we'd have to crawl under barbed wire fences and everything. They'd supposed to have been shooting bullets over our heads, you know, while we're doing that. So climb up a big pole.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that you were physically prepared when you first came, or were you not used to all of the exercise and running?
Well, I was in pretty good health back then, and of course I was young, and I could do about anything they wanted to do, you know. But the only problem I had back then, I could do about anything they wanted except run up a great big long hill. Always did have trouble when I was a kid, even young, playing basketball and all, getting my breath. And that was just something that was hard for me to do. But I could do about anything they wanted to do.
Was that your first time learning how to like load rifles and?
Oh no, I had a rifle and a shotgun when I was a kid at home. I was born and raised on a farm, so my dad taught me how to handle a gun. And
So you were experienced in
Yeah,
that
I was
area
experienced in that area, yes.
Hmm. How did you get through all of the training? Like, what motivated you?
Well, I've always been the kind of a person that I always try to do what's got to be done, you know, and I don't want somebody to show me up. I'm going to try to do as good as they do, so I try to keep up with the rest of them, do what they can.
Did you enter, like, at the very beginning of the war?
No, the war went on quite a while before I went in, before I was drafted.
Did you get to choose where you wanted to go, or did they just tell you?
No, I didn't get to choose where I went. When I was in when I was in Battle Creek, Michigan, we went through different tests. They test you for mathematics. They test you for all different kind of tests to see what you was good at.
So was this like a written test?
It was a written test, and you had to take these written tests. There was about 3 days of that, and I was always pretty good at mathematics in school, so I got sent to FDC at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and that's what it was, is directing artillery. It was the 105 gun.
Were you satisfied with where you went? Like, were you okay with going there?
Only thing I didn't, yeah, I was satisfied with it. Only thing I didn't like about it, it was hot there. It was hot.
If you had gotten to choose where you wanted to go, where would you have picked?
Well, I really don't know, because I wasn't around enough to any of those places to know.
Do you remember, like, first arriving there?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
What was that like?
When I got off the bus carrying that big satchel, or that big duffel bag I had, it was so cotton picking hot I couldn't hardly breathe.
How hot would you say it was?
You know, it got up to 100 degrees down there many days. So I'd say it was pretty close to that.
What all did you bring with you? Like, could you bring like as many like supplies as you wanted?
The only thing I had was one pair of civilian clothes, and then I had the whole satchel of Army clothes that they give us, you know. So I had one big duffel bag of clothes. Had so many pairs of socks, so many pants, so many shirts and stuff like that.
Were you upset that they were so strict on what you could bring?
Well, I wasn't upset, no, because I was just learning, you know. I knew, when I went in the Army, I knew what it was like, so I just made the best of it, tried to go along.
Were you scared when you first arrived?
It wasn't nothing to be scared about, no.
Did you see any combat?
No.
How many people were with you? How many men were training with you?
Well, there was 3 batteries, A battery, B battery, and C battery, and I think there was around 90 people in each one. We had a barracks, and I think there was 45 people downstairs and 45 people up. So there was about 90 in my area.
So where did you sleep?
I slept upstairs in a bunk.
Did you see anyone like die or anything? So were some of the men upset about being there? Like, were they not as optimistic about the situation?
You know, you get around a bunch of boys like that. Yeah, there were some of them upset. They didn't want to be there, and it wasn't no pleasant place to be because we didn't have no air conditioning, and it was hot, and we wouldn't get to bed till 11 o'clock at night. You had to get up at 5 in the morning, and sometimes we'd have to go take a shower, just the hottest shower as we could take, and then go lay down. It was cool, you know, and to go to sleep. So,
Did everyone else eventually get to have their families come also?
no.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
No, not really. About the only thing I was awarded the time I was there, I shooting a gun. I shot the best of our battery.
How did they determine that?
Well, we went out in the field and we had big targets to shoot at, and you got so many points for every time you hit center target,
Mhm.
or if you shot out, well, so many points for each one, and you scored. You shot so many shots, and the one that's got the best score.
So, how many men were doing that? Like, how many did
Oh,
you get?
everybody had to do it.
Did you get any injuries?
No.
What weapons did you have to use?
Well, when in artillery, I mean in infantry, we had an M130 rifle and we had a carbine, M30 carbine. That's all we had.
How did you stay in touch with your family, like before they were allowed with you?
Well, I wrote most of the time, and once a month I'd have enough money to go down to the telephone and call my wife and talk to her for about 20 minutes. I got to talk to her once a month on the telephone.
Did you talk to your parents at all?
No.
What was the food like that you ate?
Most of the time the food was pretty good. They didn't starve us. We had plenty to eat when I was in basic.
What was a typical meal? Like, what would you have to eat?
Well, I'd never eat fried potatoes for breakfast before, but I did when I was in the Army, and biscuits and gravy for breakfast, and I don't know. We had pretty good meals. We had a lot of hamburger, and baked goods.
Did you have choices of
No,
what you
no.
ate?
No,
You just ate whatever they fed you?
You ate just whatever they put on your plate.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Yeah, usually we had about everything we needed.
Did you ever feel any pressure or stress while you were there?
Not really, no.
Did you have anything with you for good luck?
No, I never thought about anything like that.
How did you entertain yourself while you were there?
Really, when we was in basic, we didn't have much time to entertain anything. We was always working. But if I didn't have nothing to do at night, I'd go out and walk. I'd walk around the camp wherever I could go. We was restricted; we couldn't go too many places. But we had a movie theater down on the main part of the post, and go to PX. That was about it.
So you got to see movies?
Yeah, they had a movie theater that you could go to.
Do you remember any of the movies that you saw?
No, I don't remember.
Did you have many friends with you?
Not personal friends, but I made a lot of friends while I was in the service.
What did you do when you were on leave?
Well, most of the only leave was I only had 2 leaves. Well, I come home when I got out of basic training. I had 15 days. I come home for Christmas, which was I had to go back on the 15th of December. I got out the 1st of December. I had to be back on the 15th, and I spent Christmas home with my folks. And I had to go back and walk guard on Christmas Day, so that was my Christmas, walking guard on the post.
Did they allow everyone to go home on Christmas?
No.
So how did you get to go home? Like, how did they decide who went home?
Well, when I got out of basic training, everybody that was in that basic training was going someplace. A lot of them went to Korea. Some of them went to Germany. 3 of us stayed on the post. 3 of us out of that whole 90 stayed there, and I was one of those. But the ones that went to Korea they got 30 days leave. The ones that went to Germany got 30 days leave. The ones that stayed there got 15 days. So that's how it was.
Did you want to go to Korea or Germany?
No, I didn't. At that time, I didn't want to because my wife is pregnant. She's going to have the baby in February, and I kind of wanted to stay there. And that might be one of the reasons they let me stay, didn't go overseas, because the sergeant the first sergeant called us all in and talked to us, and he asked me if I had any reason not to go overseas, and I said, well, I don't have a reason not to, but one reason I'd like to stay here was because my wife was going to have the baby in February, and I don't know if that's the reason he let me stay here or not. But
So what year was your child born?
53, 1953. February of 53.
What are some of your most memorable events that happened while you were there?
Well, I guess the most memorable was when I went to Camp Nether Rock, Nevada. I seen an atomic bomb dropped out of an airplane, and I seen it go off. I had glasses on to where I could watch it explode, and I got to see that, and I got to, we was supposed to, as they told us, we took a 280 millimeter cannon out there and shot atomic shell through it, and that was supposed to have been the first atomic shell ever shot out of a gun. So that was one experience that I had that I'll never forget, because I was down in a tunnel or a trench about 100 feet from the gun when it went off, and if it exploded, I wouldn't be here today.
How long were you in Nevada?
It's 5 weeks.
5 weeks. Why did they send you there?
Well, they sent our whole battery out there because we had the gun, and we was trained. We trained and trained and trained how to fire it.
Mm-hmm.
So after they decided we were good enough to do this, well, we put the gun on a railroad train, and we went to Nevada out there to shoot it.
What was your reaction when you saw the atomic bomb explode?
Well, nothing like it. You just wouldn't want to be around one when that happened, I'll tell you.
What are some of the most humorous events?
Oh, it's kind of comical to see a bunch of men, especially if you're out doing training and all, the reaction to a lot of them, It's always funny, but it shouldn't be, but it is,
Did you and the other men play any pranks on each other?
Oh yeah, we always doing that. We had to keep them going nuts,
Do you remember any of the pranks that you would pull?
No, not now.
Okay. What did you think of the officers or the fellow soldiers that you were with?
Well, as you first go into service, why, you just don't understand why the training officers are as strict as they are, and why they make you do this and why they make you do that. You get so you about hate them, because they do things to you. But after you're in the service for a while, say a year, and you got to go back and do the same thing they do, and then you understand why they done it. It's all in training people, and it's not that, you gotta use your head and think what they're doing this for.
Did you keep a personal diary or write down any of your experiences?
No, I didn't.
Where were you when you learned that you could finally go home?
I was out on a training mission out in the field there at Fort Sill. We were training Japanese officers how to shoot them guns and how to direct fire. And when the first sergeant come out there in a Jeep and come up to me and asked me, are you ready to go home? I said, yeah, I'm ready anytime. He said, well, we're going to let so many out early. Really, I wasn't supposed to get out till July the 30th. And this was something around a little after the 1st of June. He said, if you want out, we'll let you out on the 17th of June. I said, good, so put me down, I'll go.
Were you surprised?
Yes, I was.
So approximately how long were you in the service?
Actually, I was only in the service about 22 months and a half. I was supposed to have been there for 2 years, but they let us out about a month and a half early.
So why did they decide to let so many go home early?
Well, they said they would, money. They said their money was running out, and they didn't have enough money to go ahead and keep everybody there, and so they would let some of the draftees out because they really didn't need them at the time. So if we wanted to get out early, we could.
So the people that actually enlisted, they had to stay longer?
As far as I know, the ones enlisted had to stay till their enlist time was over, yeah.
What did you do when you first returned home?
Well, I tried to go back to work at the job I was at, but they were all on vacation at the time, so I had to wait 3 weeks before I could go back to work. So I went back to the factory that I was working when I left.
So how long did you stay there and work?
I stayed there at the factory that I went back to till November of '56. Then I went to work over at General Motors.
Did you find that things had changed a lot while you were gone, or
Oh yeah, well, a little bit, not much.
what all had changed?
Well, anything changes, you know, as you're going. As the scenery changes, the people build houses, the road changes. I mean, it's just nothing as far as people. It's just that the atmosphere changed, you know.
Did the GI Bill support your education or job? Or?
I never did apply for one, no.
Did you remain friends with any of the men that you were with in the service?
Yes, I had him. I don't even remember his name, but his last name was Kyle. One at Bluffton, Indiana. Him and I, we were friends down there. Then I had another one out to Peoria, Illinois, that I'd done a lot with. We was friends for quite a while after that.
Did you join a veterans organization?
I belonged to the VFWS.
What's that?
Fairmount.
What does that stand for?
Veterans of Foreign War. At Fairmount.
What all do you do with that? Like?
Well, I really don't do too much with it. Mainly what that does is they just more or less take care of other veterans if they get sick or something like that. You go in and try to help them. And they got a little club there in Fairmount. Of course, a lot of them around, but that's just one of them. And we just more or less get together and talk and things like that.
So how often do you go there?
Me? I don't go there too often, maybe a couple times a year is about it.
How, if at all, did the war affect your personality?
Well, it didn't affect me any. I think it learned me a lot. I think it taught me a lot of respect for myself and respect for others. And it taught me to take care of myself if I have to, if I was a loner, you know, not depend on somebody else.
Did your experience affect the way that you view wars in general?
That I what in general?
Like, the way you see war in general, like, did that affect it at all?
Well, not really. I just don't like war, you know. I never did like war. I don't like to see other people get hurt. And even the people that you're fighting, you know, I think a lot of it's nonsense. But sometimes you got to do it, you know, because you're asked to, and we got to take care of our own country. But I don't like a war unless we just have to do it.
But your opinion about war was like that before you were in the service?
Oh yeah, I never did.
Did your experience affect the way that you view the military?
No, it's pretty well what I expected of it, you know. They was a little more stricter than what I thought they would be, but I mean, like I say, after I was in there a while, I understand why they did it.
Did you attend any reunions with the men that you served with?
No, I haven't.
So do you think you're a stronger person because of the war?
I think so. I think it taught me a lot. And also my wife, when she first come down there, we didn't have no money for nothing, and there wasn't no way of getting any money, and we had to make pennies, we had to stretch pennies to go from month to month, and that taught us a lot about money, respect the money, to take care of it, and I made a promise then, if I ever get out of this and ever get old, they'll never get me in this kind of shape again, and so far it hasn't,
How else has the war affected your wife, or being down there with you?
No, she enjoyed it. She really did. It didn't affect her any hardly at all. She enjoyed being in there.
This is the end of side 1. This is the beginning of side 2.
Okay. Do you have any advice for young men today who are going into the military?
I really don't have any advice to tell them, because everybody's going to have to do it for their own. But I think every boy that gets out of high school should at least spend a year in the military. I think it would teach them a lot. I think they'd learn a lot. They'd learn respect for their parents and other people, because they're going to teach you respect there, and that's what a lot of boys need today. And I just, that's my opinion.
Like, if you could go back, would you have enlisted if you hadn't been drafted?
No, I don't think so, because when I got home and I got my good job at General Motors, why, I couldn't ask for anything better than that, so I don't think I'd go back to service, no.
Is there anything that you did while serving that you regret?
No, not really.
Is there anything you would like to talk about, or any other stories that you would like to share?
No, not really. I just, I can't think of anything.
Okay.